point, I will call the meeting of the Marshall City Council to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The emergency fell right up. I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening. We have an agenda before us. Are there any changes to that agenda? If not, we'll operate under that agenda. We'll move to agenda item number 3, which is to consider the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting that was held on October 10th, as well as the work session that was held on October 17th. So the council does have the minutes of both of those meetings. Are there any corrections?
Mr. Mayor, I'd move to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Motion by Steve, seconded by Jim to approve the minutes as they have been presented. We'll move to a vote. Motion passes. Agenda item number 4. Agenda item number 4 is the bike trail reconstruction project. The action before us is to consider the award of the proposals. I'll call on Jason Anderson, the Assistant City Engineer.
Thank you, Mayor. On October 18th, we received 2 proposals for our 2017 bike trail reconstruction project. Funds were allocated in the 2017 Street Department budget for reconstruction of city bike trails. Staff has identified over 10,000 square feet of trail that's in need of repair along Windstar near Patriot Park, as you can see displayed on the map up there. The trail in that location is badly cracked and separated and a little bit of a hazard, so that's where staff has identified us to allocate these funds. Quotes we received were very competitive, and we recommend that the council award the proposal to the low quote provided by Chuck Hess Concrete in the amount of $49,488.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Questions for Jason?
Jason, in this rebuild, as we look at that Patriot Park, maybe this is a question for Preston too. Mm-hmm. This is just the replacement and refixing of all these things that are annotated. It's not building anything further.
Right, we're just replacing cracked trail in those locations as identified. We made some marks out in the field. If you go out and look, you can see our paint marks. But just to try to do the best we can with the funding that we have to put that back together a little better, we're simply removing the concrete and putting new concrete back down.
Okay. Is there a long-term plan to fix or to connect that?
That would be a better question probably for Parks, but I think that is on their agenda and something that they want to get done. They just need to find the funding.
I think that's in our budget proposals for this year.
It's getting there, yeah.
David?
Jason, question. Was there some problem with the installation of these sections? And or is there something we could still have a discussion with the contractor about, or is that too far past?
I think we're too far past on that. You know, I've heard rumors that maybe it was a wet or subgrade at the time of construction. It's rumors. I think that what you have is just a section of trail that cracked, maybe due to some of our own doing too. Maybe we got a little too heavy of equipment on it in bad times of the year to move snow. It's just something we're going to have to make sure that we do a better job of protecting our trails now that once we fix them here. So.
Thank you.
So the timing of the construction is yet this year?
It can be, but I would anticipate that it'd probably be done next year. We've given them until June of next year to get this done.
Because if it was yet this year, you could run into exactly the same thing with.
Right.
From my understanding, I haven't had conversations with Chuck Hess Concrete about it specifically, but I do know that they've got other things that they're working on. I would anticipate this would be next year.
Okay. Other questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Steve, seconded by Craig to approve. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Motion passes. Agenda item number 5. Agenda item number 5 is the consent agenda. We'll bring the items on the consent agenda up on the screen. And they include authorization for the adoption of the revised City of Marshall Emergency Operation Plan. Consider the resolution authorizing the closure of the Wastewater Debt Service Fund 614. Approve the Springstead post-issuance contract updates. Consider the authorization for the rental agreement between the City of Moorhead and the City of Marshall for the hazmat training trailer. The request for the authorization to advertise for bids for towing and storage of vehicles. Consider the authorization to declare vehicles as surplus property for the police department. Consider declaring the fire department equipment as surplus property. Consider approval of a tobacco license for Ton Cow. Consider the application for a temporary on-sale intoxicating liquor license for Prairie Home Hospice and Community Care for an event December 31st, 2017 at the Regional Events Center at Southwest Minnesota State University. Consider the approval of the renewal of the farm leases with tenants Mike Mortier and Paul Wambeck for a 3-year lease, 2018-2020, and consider the approval of the bills and the project payments. Is there any item on the consent agenda any member of the council wants to remove for purposes of separate discussion?
Mr. Mayor, item 15, please.
Okay, 15. Any other item? If not, Kyle, you'll let me know when you're ready. I would entertain a motion for the
Motion to approve the rest of the consent agenda as written.
second. Motion by Steve, seconded by Jim. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. The motion does pass. We'll now move to agenda item number 16. This is the rental agreement, Steve.
So I looked at that, and I talked to Dennis actually a little bit, but in looking at this, and I asked a couple of farmers what their thoughts on this were, and the price, right now prices are low. You're not going to make any money on corn this year, and they actually, people I talked to both said 180 might be a little high this year. The other thing that I was thinking is a 3-year lease, and everybody I talked to that's in it said, why do a 3-year lease, do it year for year? I talked to Dennis, and he said that the amount of paperwork generated by the city is a lot, but is that any more than like Northwest Farm Management? And of course, that's all they do for a living. Right? So the other option would be, do we have any special arrangement with the two individuals here, or is it something to think about where you would say minimum, here's our bid, and we bid it out like we bid anything out. The minimum price we're going to rent it for is $165 an acre, and here's the minimum bid, here's the closing date, put in your bids, and the high bidder wins.
Dennis, you might want to make some comments on that, but I think, one consideration is, here we are towards the end of October, and so a lot of the inputs, a lot of the tillage, would have been done. So I think if we were going to entertain, open bids, you'd probably want to do that in, say, August.
We have in the past bid it, and oftentimes we have difficulty getting bids. These are long-term tenants, and often neighbors do not bid against neighbors. And also, a number of these are 11-acre parcels, 9-acre parcels. On the smaller ones, we don't get bids, if any, because nobody wants to move all their equipment for 9.5 acres. And so, and Mortier and Wambeck have had these leases for a number of years. They have been good stewards of the city's land. We're trying to be fair on a price for them. And Mr. Wambeck came in, and he did have the bids on all of them. He said, I overbid it. He said, I didn't make any money. If you could reduce it, I would appreciate it. We reduced some, we raised some. On the wastewater especially, there has been tile installed there, and that's a significant increase. He had been paying $76 an acre. He's now up to $180, plus that's where we spread the biosolids. He'll pay us $100 an acre for the disposal, for the use of the biosolids. So after all of that is said and done, it's only about like a $2,800 difference for Mr. Wambeck. It does provide certainty in our budget as well for when we look in the future. I know it's, everybody wants to bid. We have had different bidding processes, and we just thought this year would be a fair way to do it for the next 3 years. And there are 2 other parcels that we have not yet heard back from the tenants. We've offered them the same price. Let's keep it $180 across the board.
Given that, I would move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Steve, seconded by Craig. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Motion passes. Agenda item number 17. Agenda item number 17, consider the memorandum of understanding with Prairie Home Hospice and Community Care for the emergency shelter. Scott Vandermillen, Community Services Director, will present this.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. For your consideration tonight is a memorandum of understanding between the city and Prairie Home Hospice that we've worked on and has been reviewed by our city attorney in regards to providing an emergency shelter in case of a disaster. This would be a short-term stay, knock on wood, that this situation would never occur. I'd like to invite Joyce Ahrens from Prairie Home Hospice up to answer any questions that you may have, and she can visit with you about some of the recent federal guidelines that have changed that facilitated this agreement. So with that, Joyce.
Scott, before Joyce comes on, maybe this is a question for Dennis also, but we have assurance that there's no issues with any of the sponsorship agreements?
That's correct.
Okay,
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yes, we have met personally.
Okay, I've also brought with me one of our nurses, Nicole Jacobson.
Okay, welcome
She's
Joyce.
a
Welcome
registered
Nicole.
nurse. I'm a clinical social worker at the agency, and recently Medicare, Medicaid changed the regulations. We have to expand our plan, and so we've been busy working on that and looking for a couple of different options for emergency shelter.
In case there is an emergency, we have a
We hope.
place for our patients to go.
And we were looking specifically at places in Marshall that had generators.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good.
So.
Questions that any of the council has?
I would move approving the agreement as presented, and thank you for what you do.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Steve. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Agenda item number 18, consider the acceptance of donation funds from Southwest Health and Human Services for the construction of the playground equipment at the Amateur Sports Center. Preston Stensrud from the Parks Department will begin with this. So, Preston.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight we have a resolution accepting a check in the amount of $50,000 from Southwest Health and Human Services from Ann Oren. Today, Southwest Health and Human Services was proudly awarded a Super Bowl grant in the amount of $50,000 that they would like to pass through to the city as a donation to match the $50,000 the city has agreed to put forward towards a playground out at the Amateur Sports Center. Ann is here tonight to give the check to the city, present the check to the city should the resolution be accepted. Also, with that, I thought I'd tie this all together. The SHIP program through Southwest Health and Human Services would also like to donate a bench that matches all of our other city benches in the Parks Department, the green, plastic coated, separate from their $50,000. So that's included in this. And then also Sarah Kickmall from United Way is here, and they would like to do a Born Learning Trail out there, which has become popular over the last couple of years. They just did one in Ballatin and Walnut Grove, I believe. What it is activities that kids can do other than the playground in multiple languages. There's games on the cement, there's signs, there's she can maybe give us more information if you guys would like. We did include some in the pack also, the packet. United Way would cover the cost of the installation. They're about $1,450 each. So one would be in English and then another language. I'm not sure if that's been determined yet or not, but it'd be multiple languages. All we would do after the fact would be maintain it. Like if there was something on the cement, it'd be repainting the concrete with whatever that would be. And that would be on the trail adjacent to the playground, kind of coming off the main walkway heading east. We would do the install, and they would also have volunteers assist with the install, but we'd coordinate that together. So that's also included in this, just as kind of a information for completion of the total project, and just to give you guys an idea of kind of what's all going on. There's a bunch of different pieces. It's going to be really exciting when it's all complete. So.
Thank you, Preston, and thank you for the coordination of this collaboration. I mean, there's a number of different great entities that came together on this, so thank you.
Yep.
Ann and Sarah, you might want to come forward and accompany Preston as he's explaining this too, and then we'll open up for questions. David?
I have one.
I'm ready.
Okay, question to folks from United Way about the language. Preston's referenced the possibility of multiple languages. The example we have here is specifically of English and Spanish. Maybe you've got more homework to do on constituencies and which languages make sense. I'd encourage more than two on the idea, A, that's probably consistent with what you're trying to accomplish, but B, frankly, our native-born English speakers learn more when they see something in 3 or 4 languages. It helps them understand a little bit about different languages and maybe their own as well, so I encourage you to think about that.
Yes, yeah. The signs do only come in English and Spanish for right now.
Oh, it's a great job for...
So.
Sounds like a great opportunity for a translator out there. Yes. Okay, well, please keep that in mind.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Other questions or anything you want to add to what Preston explained?
No, I think I think it was, like you said, it was a collaboration. We got the call over a year ago, I think, and people from the city and the Y and SMSU and Healthy 56258 all came together and wrote a proposal, and this is the final outcome of it, and I'm excited to present the check.
That's awesome.
I make the motion to accept the proposal as written.
I'd like to second that.
A motion by Steve, seconded by David. In fairness,
I'll arm wrestle him for
for the resolution that would
I'm sorry, who was the first?
Steve, David.
Quick Draw Meister.
Now discussion on that motion.
I just think they did a great job. They were on Care 11 TV already. I watched them at 5 o'clock. And
Awesome.
Really?
Yep.
I didn't see it, but I heard
Preston needs to smile a little more in the face of the camera.
If you had to work for who he has to work for, you wouldn't smile.
True that. And he was on the ice. It was cold.
And we didn't get any warning.
She ambushed us.
So if there's no other discussion, we'll need to have a voice vote on this. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can we just do the presentation to you,
Yeah,
Mayor?
they're not
Okay.
leaving with that check.
It's a photo opportunity.
Just trying to figure out where they were going.
Certainly don't just do it.
Your tax dollars at work.
That Trump.
maybe stand in front of the picture.
No. Super Bowl committee discussion.
Very good. Preston, I'm going to have you maybe just for the audience, just give an overview of what will happen.
Yeah, it's good. That's a good problem to have.
Yes.
No, I wasn't going to afford
What that?
We have a little bit of time.
Okay. Yep.
No, my individual item might run really long.
I've asked Preston to give an overview of what this entire project will come together and will look like and what the timing of this would be.
Yep. All right. So the project, the playground, Burke is the company, the playground company, which is sold through St. Croix Recreation. They are the state contract holder for playground equipment, and we've dealt with them in the past. The new fire truck playground, same company. They stand behind their product very well. There's no questions. They stop in, see how we're doing if we need anything. The playground is scheduled to be delivered November 22nd, depending how Mother Nature treats us. We'll try and get it in yet this fall if weather allows. If not, or we'd get a mild winter, we'll work on it through the winter. I know in the year 2012 we got spoiled. We did the Freedom Playground in February in T-shirts, so maybe something like that will happen. The mulch, the engineered wood fiber, was originally part of this. I found another source right in St. Paul that we can get it for about half price, so I pulled that out and we'll order it from them. I'm thinking it's going to be a 5 to 7 working day install from start to complete and ready. Then I don't think we'll even try and do any of the sidewalk stuff until next spring. If you can, it's kind of hard to picture. This is just a general background, but this here would really be butt up against the main trail going up to the ball fields as you're coming from the parking lot. And then we'll do a sideway off, and then the batting cage is really sitting back here. So this will kind of come back around so that people can walk over to the batting cage on the concrete. That's also where the Born Learning Trail would be installed.
And then the future shelter slash storage building will be in that same area.
Yep. So the future shelter slash storage would be, as you're looking at the picture to the right or to the south, between there and the concession building. And we have, the electrical and stuff's all plumbed in and conduited in for that expansion. And when we do that, it's ready to go.
Will that screen the parents' ability in the stands to view the kids on the playground?
Yep. We want to keep it far enough away for safety on foul balls, but yet not so far that it feels like they have to walk over there all the time to see what they're doing and take them away from the other thing. Okay. So we'll get that in a CAD drawing that the engineering department will hopefully help us on layouts and getting exact points. I kind of have it staked out just roughly. And then it has the edging all included in the bid to hold the mulch back so it doesn't spread out onto the sidewalk or out into the grass and stuff like that. So
are those, go ahead.
Was that equipment representative of the exact equipment we're getting?
Yep, exactly. The company actually has a special going on till November 1st that whole setup there is actually like $147,000. They had a sale going that if we ordered and got it shipped out right away, they took like $48,000 off.
Strong work.
Yeah. And then on top of that, we got the state contract price knocked off of the bottom line. So we got like a 50% better bang for our buck than we were getting originally. So
the donated spring toys, are they going in here too? Where are those going?
Those are going to Independence Park because the Rotary has their, not Rotary, Shades of the Past.
They got their deal.
Has their rock there and stuff. So.
Very good. Any other questions for Preston?
Awesome job.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
We pay you so much.
We'll move then to agenda item number 19. Agenda item number 19 is consider the approval of the post-retirement healthcare savings plan memorandum of understanding. Sheila?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The city has had this benefit in place since 2006, but all of our agreements are 2-year agreements, so they all expire on December 31st of this year. So we have agreements with each of the union groups, so there's 3 of those, and then the non-union group. Each of these proposed agreements in your packet do represent majority consensus of the eligible participants for each of those groups. We've also reviewed these with the Minnesota State Retirement System already, and they are compliant with their program. I did include some background materials on this for anyone that may not have been familiar with the healthcare savings plan. It is a post-retirement option that is tax-free in and tax-free out for the employee to save upon separation of employment for eligible healthcare expenses. There are a number of healthcare expenses that this money can be utilized for, and those are governed by the IRS regulations. So far too many to list in this document, but there is a document showing all of those. Participation in this program does result in a tax savings, not only to the employee, but also results in a tax savings to the city. The city realizes tax savings through the FICA contribution, so the Social Security and Medicare contributions. We save 7.65% on that for all AFSCME and non-union employee contributions into this plan. And then for our police department, for our sergeants and our police officers in the plan, we save 1.45%, the Medicare portion of FICA, into this. So there is a significant savings to the city on all contributions made. Since 2006, since the inception, the council wanted to incentivize employees to continue contributing to this account on a regular basis. And so there was an approval at that time of an annual prorated employer contribution, into the individual accounts in the amount of $25 annually. That basically covers the administrative fees that the employee gets charged. In some cases, it may not cover all of it, but it does cover a portion of it. So that is typically made in December into active employee accounts. So if the employee would retire or resign earlier than that, they would not receive the $25. It's only if you are still an active employee in December of that year. We currently have 94 employees participating in the program. And last year, for 2016, I listed in your materials that $25 per account, the total cost to the city was $1,304.50 across the 65 employees. The city's savings, based on the contributions into the account, was $17,723.79. So I'm recommending that the city still consider that $25 contribution to incentivize more employees to continue contributing. This year will be the first year that our AFSCME union group actually contributes on a bi-weekly basis. In the past, they've only contributed upon separation. So the city did realize that tax savings, but now there will even be more tax savings to the city because they are going to contribute on a bi-weekly basis. So that $17,000 savings will increase significantly this next year because we've got more employees going into the plan. The total cost to the city estimated in 2017 will be $2,350. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the memorandums. I did include the proposals in there. The primary changes were the dates of the agreement and that the AFSCME contribution on a biweekly basis was their major change. And then the only other one that changed throughout each of the agreements was the Minnesota State Retirement System requested that we include a clause about the death benefit, that upon an employee's death, that the contributions are no longer made into the account. The language that I have in here is the recommendation from the Minnesota State Retirement System. We did not edit the language that they recommended. So that's the quick summary of the changes in this. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you, Sheila. Questions?
Mr. Mayor, I have a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Steve, seconded by Craig. Discussion? I would just say thank you for your background work on all this, on your detail. Other discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Motion passes. Agenda item number 20. Agenda item number 20 is consider the approval of the Employee Assistance Program, the EAP renewal for 2018. Once again, Sheila.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is the final renewal benefit that we have coming forward for you for the 2018 fiscal year. We have had an employee assistance program since 2014, and we've partnered with Blue Cross and Blue Shield on this since its inception. I provided some background materials in here about what an EAP can do for an employee. They can assist both on an individual employee level and on a work level in providing consultative services for a variety of issues, and I've listed that in your packets. I also provided a history of the premium schedule, the fees that are charged the employee and the employer. The first year that we tried this benefit, the employer paid for the entire cost of the plan. After that, it was a 50-50 cost share between the employer and the employee on this. There's a change this year to the premium rates in that Blue Cross Blue Shield has introduced a tiered structure for non-health members, and what that means is that we have some employees and part-time employees that aren't eligible for our health insurance benefits or that don't elect our health care insurance benefits. So if they don't elect a plan under Blue Cross and Blue Shield, now they're deemed under this plan as an associate member. So it's a slightly higher premium for that. We would still like to have the benefit available to our members. I have discussed this with each of the division heads, and they feel that this plan is a valuable plan for the employees and would like to continue it. So the plan would be for all of our full-time, our part-time employees, and firefighters. That's who would be eligible. The total cost to the city for the premium for all of the employees is $891.48. And again, the employees share on this 50-50.
Sheila, it looks like 132 is the number of employees. Bottom of your chart. Does that include the utilities?
No, the utilities have a whole entirely different benefit package.
80 odd direct city employees and then 40 or so from the fire department gets us pretty close to 132.
CAT team.
Correct. And the CAT team isn't included in this.
Or they're not?
Firefighters and police officers.
With that, I'll move approval of the renewal for the EAP program for 2018.
Second.
Motion by David, seconded by Steve. Discussion? Sheila, just one quick question. Do we know who Blue Cross Blue Shield contracts with to provide the service?
I don't off the top of my head, but I can submit that for the council if you would like.
Somebody in the cities, Bob.
I know well, we can talk about that later.
It has changed over time. 2 years ago, I can't even remember what theirs was, but it's different now than it was then, and I had never heard of this company before. So when I looked it up this time, I didn't recognize the name. I apologize, I don't have the name.
And that's fine.
So it's somebody who's not local?
You know, usually, I know a number of the counties, in fact, just about all of the counties work through the Association of Minnesota Counties, but then it's Sand Creek is the provider.
Okay, that is.
And they have providers, most of them are counselors that are located in various parts of the state. So it's not,
right.
They're all, coming from a distance.
So
the referrals come to our local providers.
So that's what I'm
Yes.
saying. Yes. People got to go to the cities.
Yes.
To me, it's a waste of money. But there is people in Marshall.
Oftentimes, the employee would like consultation phone call. So the majority of consultations can be held via phone call. If the employee is requesting a referral to a counselor, they can request that in our Southwest area.
Okay.
And some employees are particular about that. They don't want to be seen by a provider in their
And that's understandable. But
town of where they work. They prefer either in Cottonwood or Tracy or wherever.
But they're not driving to the cities for this. That's what you said.
The cities is
No.
the
I
point of
understand.
contact, and that's
right.
where they coordinate the
Yeah.
local providers.
All of the services can be provided in our
Okay.
area.
That answers my question.
Yep.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Motion passes. Agenda item number 21 is Commission Board Liaison reports. Actually, mine have not met since we last met. Craig?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Merit Center had a meet and greet this afternoon, so I spent a little time out there. There's been a lot of activity. Sheila, thank you so much for your help with getting things kind of moving out there. We're going to have some growing pains as things move through, and we're working through that. Some of it is how space gets shared, and I want to thank the CAT team, too, for their help in getting things worked out. But positive point is the motorcycle training group was out there just before I left, and it made me almost late because they're pretty excited about that facility and using that versus their former arrangement, and they were very complimentary about the package that we have out there for them. And I will also say that with some of the training that the CAT team, Marshall or Southwest CAT, and the other state CAT teams were at last week up at Camp Ripley, there's been some more discussion about some other potential training props and other things that are happening. And I think there's some energy with the fire department and some of the other partners in the community to move forward at looking at expanding the curriculum out there. So I'm feeling pretty positive about where things are at. The Merit Center is, I think, getting some traction to really start moving forward and building a program. And there's going to be growing pains, okay? You're going to hear some grumbling and mixing. And Sheila, again, I thank you, and I also apologize because it's been pretty active. And so it's kind of like a bad episode of the telephone game right now, but we're getting through it. So other than that, I don't have anything else. But it's really positive, and all the issues that we've had are all for the good. So it's nothing but good's going to come out of it for everybody because everything's going to get clear communication and things are going to be spelled out so that people have good expectation of what's going on out there. And I think things are improving. Jasmine's doing a great job right now, so I think it's looking good.
Okay, thank you, Craig. Steve?
The Community Services Advisory Board did not meet. The EDA did actually meet yesterday, but I was at work. They had a meeting in the middle of the day at 2:30, and my patient wouldn't allow me to get out. And they met on Wednesday, and I had to go down to St. Louis with Dan, so I have nothing. There was one thing that I saw in the minutes, though, about that deed 80/20. Can you comment on that, Carla?
And I think that was the subject of the special meeting today.
Yeah, it was. So,
and they had
Carla's far better to talk about it than me anyway. So,
well, there's a couple items that are going on in EDA, and it's all with CRIF or MIF funds. So we have local, state, and federal, or the EDA does, have funds in each one of those accounts. And right now going on with the state funds, the state is, through June of 2018, you can use your state MIF funds and you have to turn 20% back to the state and 80% the strings attached, the criteria for utilizing them are lessened for sure. We are looking further into what exactly they mean by general use. So
general purpose aid.
Yeah, general purpose aid. So
a term not defined anywhere in statute, but that's your limitation.
So Dennis is looking into that
basically
for us.
It's any lawful.
The Swiss Army knife of uses.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way that I understood it when I was reading it.
Lawful expenditures.
Lawful expenditures.
Right.
Yeah. So the restrictions of Davis-Bacon wage.
That's the federal law.
That's on the federal
side,
okay.
the Davis-Bacon laws. So, so that's what the state, the 80/20. It is. They're looking further into what we can use that for, and we'll go forward. We anticipate that the EDA will choose to take advantage of the 80/20. But that could change based on what information we find out. The other item going on right now is with the federal funds, and we are with UCAP is doing a grant agreement to small cities, and so EDA yesterday approved the funds that are in that account, which are about $539,000. Are going to be part of our grant application to deed for small cities. We have been told that in most cases where cities put all of their funds toward that application, it's more likely to be approved for a small cities grant. First round goes in here in November for the application, and then the second round is February. So if we make the first cut, they'll be doing another application in February or be looking at it again in February. Funds wouldn't be available to the cities until May or June of next year. However, this year's small cities just got released on Monday. So the HUD was behind or backed up. So it could be another year again, 2019, before any action is taken or see anything happening in Marshall.
And that grant application is going in for owner-occupied improvements as well as commercial development as well. So.
Yes.
So good stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Carla.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Anything else?
Nope.
David?
The boards have not met since our last meeting.
And Jim?
Adult Community Center did meet. They're discussing a contract for who does, I think it's Lutheran Social Services does the Meals on Wheels. There's some questions. Dennis, you're supposed to be reviewing that.
The review has gone back to Barb. She has the document. Yep.
Marshall Area Transit did not meet. They had a meeting up at the cities the same day as they were all in the cities for transportation. That's it.
Very good. Thank you. Agenda item number 22 is Councilmember individual items. Craig?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Steve?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Jim?
The only thing I'd like to comment on as fall wraps up is to give a shout out to our students who have all excelled in their different, football, marching band. First year they've had a girls soccer team. And as a city, I think we should comment to our students how proud we are of them. I'm partial to the marching band because I'm involved, but we have a football team that had a perfect season again, like I said, a swimming team. And it speaks to the parents out in our community, our adults out there, that we have children like that we have a really good community.
Pretty dedicated.
And I think the kids deserve a shout out because they all excelled. All of them excelled this fall.
Very good. Well said. Thank you, Jim. David?
Several events I had an opportunity to be part of over these last couple of weeks, attending the banquet for the Pheasant Opener program, hosted by the governor and his staff, and then to be a bit around the gathering spot where the hunters brought in their birds the next morning. The State Public Utilities Commission had a field hearing here in Marshall last week, and that's a very powerful body that you hear almost nothing about unless you work in one of the industries or trade organizations that are directly affected by its rulings. But they were out here, it seemed mostly for information gathering about some of the alternative energy projects in our county. And this morning had great fun representing the mayor and the city at the ceremony to receive the grant. And we had folks there from the Super Bowl host committee, had some Twin Cities news media, and you put these three events together. What does that tell you? It tells you we are giving the state of Minnesota more and more reasons to come here to be doing things with us and sometimes for us that in past years maybe would not have happened. So all those things, although they are independent of each other, add up to something that measures I think pretty well with the dynamism in our community. And I'll mention a fourth item. A little earlier in October, was invited to a luncheon up in Spicer. There's a Wilmer-based group that is billing itself as a Highway 23 coalition, or perhaps a reincarnation of the previous group by that name. Very motivated to promote the completion of the four-laning of the two gaps that are currently only two-lane between Wilmer and St. Cloud, and we certainly support that. I was there wearing both the city hat and the Marshall Area Transportation Group hat, and particularly was there to have some time to visit with Transportation Commissioner Charlie Zelli and get him up to date on some of the things that our group has done and our continuing interest, not only in Highway 23, it's sort of like a Noah's Ark. There are two gaps on Highway 23 to complete that four-laning. There are two gaps on US 212 in Carver County, our primary connection point to the Twin Cities, and two gaps on US 14, which in terms of the traffic, the freight traffic that moves in and out of our community, is perhaps the most important of all three. So it was a good opportunity to talk to him a bit about those projects and what they can mean. And if those happen, then this list of things I've just talked about is apt to get longer.
Very good. Thank you, David. In addition to the things that Dave talked about that were, first off, thank you for covering for me today at the event, so I appreciated that. I was out of town for business. There's a number of things that we've talked about this evening. David, you talked about the Pheasant Opener and the other events, and that really came together because a lot of volunteer efforts went into it, and that's a lot of different organizations. And I'll just add one more to that, and that last week there is a group that is working on an application for Marshall to become a bike-friendly community. I know Jason was at that meeting, and that has to do with a lot of safety things and signage and really documentation of some of the efforts that have already been made, but then also some education to go along with that on safe biking. So, and that's a group of kind of individuals and some organizations that have just come together and put together really a lot of volunteer time. And there's also then the kind of collaboration that may end up morphing all together with Healthy 56258, Bike Friendly Community, as well as a couple of other advocacy groups that are all interested in a healthy community and an active community. And I mention that because, you know, I'm always appreciative and sometimes amazed at the number of people that are out there to do good things. You know, sometimes as council members, we hear from people that have complaints, but we don't always give the appreciation to the people that volunteer and to really make a difference in the community. So anyway, with that, let me move then to agenda item number 23.
I actually have nothing this evening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Calm down.
Holy cow. Saving it up for you.
Does anyone have any questions for Sheila? If not, Jason?
Most of our 2017 projects are substantially complete, so we're just sort of working towards finaling those. So you've probably noticed a lot of those improvements in the community. Commerce Industrial Park project is kicked off, and Midwest Contracting is moving dirt, so that's great. We anticipate that the underground contractor, Keekly Underground, will be in next week to start some storm sewer construction along Highway 68 near the diversion channel, and then up towards the Industrial Park project. Beyond that, like I said, everything's pretty well done. We're starting to look towards next year and keep things moving. So,
Okay. Thank you, Jason. Dennis?
As a tie-in to what Jason just said, the deed grant agreement for the $2 million BDPI, the infrastructure grant, that document arrived here last Thursday. It has been reviewed, and comments and requested changes have gone back to deed, and I think we're on the same page for the document that we hope to bring that back here for council approval next meeting on November 14th. Be prepared. It's 151 pages in length, so just...
The abridged version.
Yeah, the abridged version. They're on the library, Plum Creek, they're having another document that's being circulated for review by the various counties and cities involved in the Plum Creek system. That's not anticipated for final action until early 2018. Jim, I have taken a look at that Senior Center Lutheran Social Services agreement. That should be in final form soon. That's all.
Any questions for Dennis? If not, agenda item number 26 is the pending agenda items. Agenda item number 27 is the information items, including the building permits. Agenda item number 28 then would be the listing of upcoming meetings. And agenda item number 29 would be to consider adjourning.
Careful on the no votes on this. We're a little short, so I move we adjourn.
Motion by Craig, seconded by David, to adjourn discussion. If not, we'll move to a vote. Motion passes.
I knew you were going to.